Hello, Boulder and the wider world. This is Philip Ogren from the Sharing Boulder podcast, and I am excited to announce the imminent arrival of Season 3 of Sharing Boulder. I had the day off on Juneteenth, and I thought to myself, I should really dust off the podcast and fire it back up again, because I knew the Raucous Caucus was about to happen, which is an event that marks the kickoff to the 2023 City Council election campaign season, and I was reminded of how much fun I had interviewing City Council candidates back in 2021. In fact, 6 of the 10 candidates that year were on the podcast, and I found it to be quite informative. It is challenging to be an informed voter on all the different ballot measures and candidates that you are asked to vote for. I remember before I got involved in local politics, sitting down with my ballot in 2017 and trying to make sense of who I should vote for. I had a little stack of mailed flyers, several browser tabs open, and I started reading through summaries of the issues. I found this experience to be quite frustrating and tedious because all the candidates seemed to be saying roughly the same things, and I didn't necessarily want to spend all day trying to discern the important differences between them. But I'm convinced that we really ought to be paying attention and be informed voters when we fill out our ballots in October. So, I started firing off emails to all the candidates that I had contact information for and started lining up interviews, and I am going to have as many candidates on the podcast as possible. I hope you will find this a useful resource for helping you fill out your ballots and that it will help you be informed when discussing the candidates you support when talking with your neighbors. One of the great things about people campaigning for office is that this is a demographic that is especially eager to be interviewed on a podcast. And I have had an incredible response from this year's mayoral and city council candidates. In fact, the first episode will feature none other than our current mayor, Aaron Brockett. And I have interviews lined up with the other 2 mayoral candidates, Nicole Spear and Bob Yates. I am super excited to share with you Sharing Boulder's new theme song. Check this out.
We ain't throwing starfish here, now we're having a good party. Talking about structural change. We believe the land is sacred, even beneath that vacant parking lot. But the weeds are doing their best to express the need for something different. Gonna make some space for you and me to live here all together. Gonna make it safe and fun for kids to get around the town. Gonna find me a residential pedestrian district where I can gracefully grow older. Gonna spend my remaining years sharing Boulder.
Woo! I love that song. It was created and performed by my dear, sweet nephew, Nathaniel Ogren, in a band called Sack Lunch, which consists of Ben Simmons and Ben Coleman. Nathaniel lives in Austin, Texas, and is in a band there named Yard Sale, which has had success playing for college-age crowds. I am currently in northern Minnesota, spending a couple of weeks at a lake in Itasca County, where my family has a cabin. Nathaniel was here for a week, helping Ben and Ben record a Sack Lunch album, along with a photographer named Josh Martin. At the end of the week, I had to drive down to the Twin Cities to drop 2 teenagers off at the airport. And on the way back up, it occurred to me that I might be able to get them to create a theme song for me. So, I spent a couple of hours in the car putting some lyrics together. My process was to just sing out loud things I've been saying over the last few years and see what would stick. When I got back to the cabin, I pitched the idea to Nathaniel, wrote the lyrics down, read them out loud to the band, and left to make myself some dinner. When I came back, they had put together a melody and were ready to start. It was super fun to watch the recording process, which involved laying down a bass track and then recording each instrument separately. Nathaniel sang lead vocals and played acoustic guitar, bass, and shakers. Ben Coleman played the drums and clarinet and mixed the final cut. Ben Simmons played the electric guitar. And they all got in on the backing vocals and the shouting track, which appears in a couple of places. The first line of the song is, "We ain't throwing starfish here, no, we're having a good party." I love this line because it's rather oblique and its meaning may not be obvious to most listeners. I love songs where you can tell that a lyric has a specific meaning to the artist, and there's room to attach your own meaning to it. But I thought I would mention that in Season 1, I went on a long rant about throwing starfish and good party metaphors, and I will include a link to that in the show notes in case anyone wants to dive a little deeper. The rest of the song is readily scrutable. The line about residential pedestrian districts was particularly fun for me because it's quite a mouthful and required a fair bit of practice and was the cause of several recording fails. But I was so happy and grateful that they leaned into it and made it work. Last year, when I announced Season 2, I indulged in a little retrospective which included a listing of the top 5 episodes. And then I proceeded to make ambitious claims about what I would try to accomplish with the podcast. But I only got 8 episodes kicked out the door in Season 2, and so it feels even more gratuitous to list off the top episodes this time. But here they are anyways. The top 4 episodes from Season 2, computed by adding downloads of the podcast plus views on YouTube. There was a tie for third place. In third place, episode 29 with Jennifer Fleury, titled Geographies of Racial Capitalism. Jennifer is an urban geographer who co-founded the Boulder Affordable Housing Research Initiative, and we talked about her academic work on international geopolitics and development with a focus on gender in Afghanistan and affordable housing here in Boulder. Also tied for third place, episode 24 with Maura Dudley, titled Car Light and Zero Waste Living. Maura and I met at a parklet near her house and geeked out over e-bikes and our respective efforts to reduce garbage, and then took a bike trip over to Nude Foods, and we walked through the store and then continued our conversation outside. In second place, episode 23 with Verity Noble, who is the owner of Nude Foods Market, a zero-waste and locally sourced grocery store that has quickly become my favorite place to buy food for my family. And the number 1 episode from Season 2 was episode 25 with Ed Byrne, where we talked about the relationship between density and open space and how to create urban centers throughout the city of Boulder. I appreciate Ed's visionary perspective, and I'm glad this episode was popular despite the technical difficulties I had with the audio quality. Thank you for listening to Season 2. Good people of Boulder, I am not going to make bold claims about what I'm going to accomplish in Season 3. I have 9 interviews scheduled, and so my immediate goal is to get those recorded and shared. And I promise that they won't all be city council and mayoral candidates. That said, if you are a candidate and haven't heard from me yet, please check your spam folder and or drop me a line. Or if you have any other idea for an episode, please drop me a line. As I mentioned last year, I'm always on the lookout for a wide variety of interview guests, including minimalists, BIPOC, young people, artists, city employees, people I disagree with, and educators, along with the usual mix of politicians, activists, and academics. Last year, when I announced Season 2, I ended with a lofty statement of purpose for why I do this podcast. I don't have much to add to that and will not try to outdo myself now. Instead, I thought I would end with something perhaps even more self-indulgent and tell you a little bit about what I've been up to, which can serve as a kind of implicit excuse for why the podcast didn't see more new episodes than it did. First, as many of you might know, I am obsessed with performing stand-up comedy, and regularly perform at the open mic at Vision Quest on Thursday nights. I also have a monthly comedy show at Inkberry Books in Niwot that features local stand-up comedians and yours truly. My comedy project is called Lady Mondegreen Comedy, and I'm hoping to stand up a little website to share show dates and material from past shows soon. In the meantime, if you would like announcements about upcoming shows, please drop me a line. The next show will be July 22nd at 7 p.m., and we have a fantastic lineup for that evening. Second, I have rather fallen off the face of the social media earth and decided to delete both my Twitter and Facebook accounts. I had been feeling some serious moral tension about participating in both platforms for some time now, and between a couple of episodes of The Ezra Klein Show and Elon Musk's takeover of Twitter, I decided it was time to unplug from both. My dream of being a social media influencer is mostly dead. I mean, I still have a podcast and an email address, but I'm not counting impressions and likes these days. Anyways, I want to give a big shout out to Elon Musk for cutting through the crap and bringing into sharp focus for me in a way that only a super genius billionaire could, what a giant dumpster fire his social media platform is. I created a profile on Linktree, and I intend to make that an easy way for people to get in touch with me. I will put a link in the show notes. Third, I am serving my second year on the Boulder Housing Advisory Board, which has been a super interesting and rewarding experience, and I am particularly proud of our role in helping reform ADUs and occupancy restrictions. Fourth, I am serving my first year on the board of Better Boulder, which has been an interesting learning experience and a great opportunity to be in dialogue with thought leaders in Boulder. I am encouraged by the thoughtful and deliberate ways that policies and candidates are debated in our city, and I like knowing that Better Boulder is just one of many such organizations that have concerned citizens coming together to think carefully about how to affect political change and keep a healthy democracy alive in our city. Finally, I participated last month in a slow marathon where my wife Akane and I walked 26 miles around the city. The next weekend, Akane came home with a tattoo on her arm that reads, Solvitur ambulando, which has become a kind of motto for our relationship and our family. It is Latin for, it is solved by walking. We went out that evening and I got a matching tattoo on my arm, and I love the daily reminder because it is a good mantra in addition to being a good policy. It also appeals to me philosophically as it echoes the concept of metis, which is a kind of accumulated knowledge that comes from practical experience and local understanding, and is discussed at length in the book Seeing Like a State by James C. Scott, which I reviewed at length in Season 1. Thank you for listening to Sharing Boulder, and I hope you enjoy Season 3. If you like the podcast, the best way to support it is to share it with your neighbors, but I always appreciate any feedback you might have, positive or negative. You can contact me at linktree.com/Philip Ogren, which you can find by DuckDuckGoing Linktree Philip Ogren, or by visiting sharingboulder.us.
Gonna find me a residential pedestrian district where I can gracefully grow older. Gonna spend my remaining years sharing Boulder.
This episode of Sharing Boulder was produced and edited by Philip Ogren. The music was created by Nathaniel Ogren and Sack Lunch. Please visit us at sharingboulder.us for show notes and previous episodes. Keep sharing, Boulder.